I just wanted to touch on that concept of one-stop shop and really expand the metaphor. With FEMDI, we can find all the data we want in that one convenience store or supermarket. And until now, we've had to visit lots of shops to find what we need. And not only that, you actually need the expert knowledge to figure out which shop you need to go into. And each shop sells and packages things in a different way, even for those things which are quite similar. And FEMDI is not only providing the single shop or the technical infrastructure, the space where we can go and find the data, but it's also building the agreements and policies so that all the current shopkeepers, that's us as members, that we're all able to work in a consistent way. So the first session is about how we're building the shop, and the second session after our break is more about the agreements and the soft infrastructure that we're putting in place. So on the slide here, Jane, can you build for us? Okay, so first of all, we're using the WMO Global Discovery Catalog so that we're creating a nice single view of all of our data in the Global Discovery Catalog. Next. The second part we're doing is we're using, people are going to use the FEMDI Data Explorer, which is a new component that we'll talk about as we go through the workshop, to find out what data is available. They'll be able to search and browse and preview the data and decide what they want. And they'll also be able to use the Data Explorer to get the URLs, the addresses, if you like, of the data and the subscriptions that they need to use in their operational systems. Next. Users submit requests for data through the FEMDI API gateway. And I just want to make a note here that alternatively, members can provide direct access to the data services that they've got. It's important from my perspective to say that we don't have to, even though we've got our one-stop shop, we don't have to publish all of our data on the same server. Members may already have infrastructure in place to be able to publish their data effectively, in which case they can just register those data services into the catalog and they will become part of FEMDI. Obviously with the governance processes around that. But we also provide this thing called the FEMDI API Gateway, or just FEMDI Gateway, to help with data service provision when needed. If a member, for example, doesn't have quality of service mechanisms in place already for their data services, such as rate limiting or quota management, they should use the FEMDI Gateway, which will provide them with that capability. Also, if you need your users, if you want users to have to register to access the data, because that's your data policy, then the FEMDI Gateway provides a common access method and common credentials to access data from every single one of us. So they don't have to have different API keys and different passwords and different secrets in order to access things from different places. So it's really important to realize that you don't have to serve through the gateway, but the gateway provides additional functionality when and where you need it. So back on the list of things, the gateway number 5 is saying that the local components, these are actually the data services that we provide as members. They hear the requests and respond to them, and then they provide all that information back to the data consumer. And because we're gathering information about those user requests into what we call the insight service, we're able to collectively build a better picture of how data consumers in Europe and perhaps beyond are using the data that we publish so that we can continue to improve our data services. Okay, so we've, as Raw said, it's been a while since you last saw us, and we've been quite busy, although, well, we feel like we've been busy. Hopefully you'll be able to see that it's been productive. Next, please, Jane. So we've been working on building out this data access control functionality. We using the using the FEMDI gateway. We are focusing on open data into support of the European high-value data sets. And in terms of access control, we're going to implement three different things, three different levels of access. We're going to allow people to have unauthenticated access. If you as a member, you're happy to have your data accessed by people and not really know who they are, and I think that some of us have to do that anyway. So we'll allow unauthenticated access. Where you require that users register or we know who they are because you want to find out more details about the kind of people that are accessing your data, FEMDI and the FEMDI gateway will require users to authenticate. And authenticated users, as a quid pro quo, we will give them a better quality of service than unauthenticated users. And then finally, UMetNet members, that's us. We want to make sure that our safety critical services run effectively. So we will make sure that us as members get the best quality of service that we can offer, even if that means squeezing out other people. We will prioritize the needs of our members first because this data is for us primarily. That's our primary service. We have talked quite at length about conditional access control. For example, you can access this for commercial use only, or you can use it for research work, or you can pay to get an improved quality of service. That's not easy to do across 31 different countries because we all have different reasons for thinking that this organization is in that category. So whilst we think that that might be something that we may expand to in the future, we're not doing it in this first phase. We want to make sure that we're delivering capability that provides use and value without getting tripped up on the complexities. So we just have those three access control levels. We're also recognizing that part of the value that we're trying to bring here is bringing all of our data into what looks like a one-stop shop or is a one-stop shop, and that's where the Data Explorer comes in. I'll talk about that more as we go on, but consider it as the shop window for all of our data. We have a whole bunch of development decisions for the 2024 to 2028 program phase, and those are based on the UMetNet budget agreements. I think right at the end of the presentation somewhere we've got the roadmap, so you can see what we've signed up to and what we haven't in that extensive process that Clement led us through for the program period. But unfortunately, with the money that we have allocated, we're not going to be doing data aggregation to package up individual responses from multiple different endpoints into a single consolidated product. Actually, that's hard. And we may add that later, but it doesn't stop us providing value right now with a simpler set of services. We are not going to do the computation service, which is about providing elastic compute close to the data so that we can deal with big data. We're having quite a simple insight service at the moment, so we're not going to be able to do that automated insight service just for now. I did see a hand come up. I'm going to get to the end of this section and then come back to questions, if that's okay. If it's not, please scribble in the chat and then somebody will tell me to stop and we'll answer your question if it's urgent. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so FEMDI is made up of a number of groups of components. So let's just talk about the community components. You'll always see these in brown in our slide deck. So first of all, Data Explorer, that's an early stage. The requirements, gap analysis and estimate and initial deliverables are agreed, and the development will start in Q2, so that's April onwards. Next, the API gateway is made up of two key parts here, identity and access management, which carries out checks and makes sure that access policies are being followed, that people are not overloading the system. And then we have the API management, provides the interface between the data consumers and our local data stores, the things that we're providing ourselves as members. We will have multiple gateways run on different cloud platforms. because we recognize that we need the gateways to be provided where the data is actually residing. Right now, we're starting with the gateways on the European Weather Cloud and Amazon to make sure that we understand that we can deploy this capability in multiple places and manage it in multiple places. Like I said a moment ago, the Insight service has pretty limited functionality and provide a summary of what data discovery and access transactions have taken place. And we will continue to build on that as we go through the life of the FEMDI program. The management information that we get from Insights will help us understand how we can improve our services. Next, please. You may wonder why, when we're talking about FEMDI, I keep on talking a lot about WIS 2.0, and it's really important, I think, to understand that WIS 2.0 provides the foundation for what we're doing in FEMDI. FEMDI layers stuff on top. FEMDI allows us to search and browse all of our data in one place and to preview before downloading it. We're providing interactive web services. All of those things are additional above and beyond what WIS 2 is asking. But WIS 2 provides some excellent components that we can build on. And also, by investing our efforts in getting FEMDI to work, we're making sure that we're delivering on those commitments we made at WMO Congress to make WIS 2 a reality. Next, please. So we will be using the Global Discovery Catalog as the repository of where we're going to store all of our metadata. That's where we'll be able to find the information about the data sets that we're publishing. Right now, it only provides a basic interface, but that's fine, because the most important thing about the Discovery Catalog is the repository of metadata that it holds. Next, please. We'll also be using the global broker. There are actually several global brokers in the WIS 2 system, but we're mainly focusing on using the French one from our colleagues at Métier France. That will provide subscription services or notifications about updates to new data and new metadata that's available. And so when I'm talking about new data, this is in the case of ESO, when we're publishing 1-minute observations, you'll get a notification every time new data is published, every minute, from every service that's providing that data. So this is genuinely providing the real-time availability. So these components are under development. They're right now in a pre-operational phase for WMO, and they will be operational from 2025. And this is a pretty close coordination between WIS 2 and FEMDI. Next, please. So we also have local components, and those are the things that we're relying mostly on the members to implement. These are the data services publishing our data. They're the things that we use to make our data available through FEMDI. And you need to integrate your data services with WIS 2 and FEMDI. It's worth saying that most of the other rodeo is grouped up into work packages. So the FEMDI work package 2 is largely dealing with the brown services that you've seen on the screen, and the other services, the things that are actually providing the data, the things that the data that we want to use, they're being provided by the other work packages. Those work packages are running at a slightly different timescale to us, and as that data becomes available, we will integrate them into our brown infrastructure. We'll be able to get more interesting data passing through. It is important to say, so if you look at the bottom of the diagram, we have a bunch of blue and white nodes representing the data services. It is really important that we work together to standardize what these APIs look like for accessing surface observations, warnings, climate data, radar data. If we don't have that in place, then it's impossible to have software systems like the Data Explorer work in a harmonized way. So we do have work planned to continue to coordinate and develop what I call standard profiles of how we publish that kind of data. And we'll be building on open standards such as the Open Geospatial Consortium's Environmental Data Retrieval API, which is already being well adopted within Europe, but each in slightly different ways. We need to harmonize our approaches on those things. Next, please. So you hear me talk about data publisher, capability operator, lots of different roles. So we'll try and illustrate that with the next slide. So we have data owners. Those are people like us. We own our data. It's up to us to decide how and where and when it's used. The data publisher is the person who is actually collecting it together and making it available. And this could be the data owner as well. Or they could do it on behalf of another data owner. And I do have some examples coming up to show you what I mean. And then we have the capability operator. Those are the people who actually run the infrastructure and push the data out into the FEMDI components and WIS2 to data consumers. Next. So examples. So let's look at ESO. In ESO, this is 10-minute OBS. Or certainly sub-hourly OBS. The data owners, that's all of us. We're all providing and collecting this information. If you're in the ESO project, Deutsche Wetterdienst are running an application which gathers together all this information and publishes it out. And that's actually hosted on the European Weather Cloud, so they're the local capability operator. So you can see that there's a bunch of different people involved in making it happen. Next. Here, I don't know, we'll pick on the Met Office as being special and different. We decided to do everything ourselves. I mean, that would never happen. We own the data. We are able to have to publish it ourselves and leverage the, we'd probably stick it on Amazon Web Services or something like that. So this is Met Office, Met Office, Met Office. But it's just how we get to the point of being able to deliver out that capability. And next, please. And the final example we have here is for Meteoalarm. So here we have Geosphere operating a capability stack for making warnings available. The data owners are delegating the responsibility to publish data to Geosphere to publish through the Meteoalarm system. So there's lots of different ways we can work together, and different patterns will be applicable in different places. But that's the fun of working together and making these things reality. So we have a FEMDI box of knowledge and some questions and answers. If you just make sure I'm in the right place so I know what we're doing. Okay, so if these questions stimulate some thoughts from you, then please do get in touch with the team. We have more information available to them. But okay, so let's read the stickmen. They say, what will we have to share? And the answer is, it's up to you. Although EU countries should provide the EU high-value data sets because that's what you're regulated to do. How do you share data through FEMDI? FEMDI will let you know the standards and formats. So, for example, when we talked about those standard API interfaces, FEMDI needs to be able to tell you how they work. What technology are we going to use? And the answer is, it's up to you to choose the right technology so long as it follows those standard interfaces, those standard functions. Or you could delegate it to others who you trust to deliver it on your behalf. Next, who's going to share their data using FEMDI? We'll start with members, and then we'll check with them before onboarding other people. Maybe at some point we'll onboard commercial organizations, but those decisions are for the future. And what will make FEMDI visible? You publish metadata into FEMDI, and then this will make it visible through the catalog. Interestingly, I forgot to say that when you publish to the catalog, We've set it up so that search engines can also index that content, so you'll be able to find the data through Google and Bing and so on and so forth. Next. Will I be able to restrict access to some of my data? Yes, you can set up access control. So only authorized users can access your data. If you want to put anything more complicated in place, then you're going to have to implement those means yourself. Next, please. What can people do with our data? Well, kind of whatever they want, caveat in terms of the license. If we're publishing high value data, it has to be open data, which is made available on a free and unrestricted basis, so they're able to use it for whatever they need. The point is to make our data more useful by making it more available, and it's the use of data that drives its economic value, I think. People who use our data might make new products, and those products themselves may also be shared through FEMDI. Next. Will users need to pay to get our data? In the short term, definitely not. We're focusing on EU HVDs, and those are free. In future, we may want to set up some commercial channels, but those are future decisions. Let's get our infrastructure working first and making sure it's meeting those needs we have right now. Next. So it's me again. Just wanted to know if there's lots of new governance processes, as we don't have much money available to operate this stuff. My FEMDI knowledge manager says that we are doing all that we can to use the standard procedures and processes in place for UMITNet to limit the burden for all of us. Next, please. And I have to, in a nod to the fact that our Finnish colleagues are leading this program, so please forgive me for brutalizing your language. Millä kielellä FEMDI tuli olemaan, which I'm reliably is not rude. Reliably informed is it's just asking which language should I use, and the answer is of course English by default. Although we're looking at providing other languages in the future. Next. Unfortunately, we're back to English. Thank you. Apparently it's been useful, but if you need to know more, please get in touch with our able program manager, Jane, who can wave, because she's available here, right? Okay, so slides are available. You can go through those. If any of those things have piqued your interest, then please do get in touch. So here's a summary. I'm not going to labor the point again. Community components, local components, some of those are needed for WMO, some of those are FEMDI specific. They all work in concert to deliver stuff. But this only works when we have the operational and program coordination, governance, assurance, coordination, monitoring, so on and so forth. And it's, I just make the point that the first half of our workshop is dealing in the top two boxes, and the second half of our workshop today is going to touch on some of the issues about program coordination. So, what's next? Yes, the roadmap. I'm not going to explain the roadmap, just to say that we do have a plan. All I need you to know is that we have a plan, and that's a plan which aligns with the budget that you set, and that's why some of the boxes are white, because we're not doing them, or at least we haven't decided. And the grey stuff hasn't been scheduled yet because we don't have enough money, because we're trying to make sure we're focusing on delivering value and value for money in the program period and towards the end of the rodeo project. And I think that is the end of our technology innovation in progress part. If I can ask my workshop moderators, do we have time for questions?
Yes, Jeremy, we have plenty of time for questions now, so I think we can take them before we go to the next part. First, there was a question in the chat about the slide deck, and Claudia has now shared the link to the slide deck, so you can also access them at the UMetNet portal. Then, as of now, there is one question.